it's Sarah here, ready to bring you another review. Today we're covering HBO's newest series, Welcome to Derry, and we're looking at episode 3 titled Now You See Me. But before we begin, please give us a like, share and subscribe and hit that hype button if you're on mobile. We greatly appreciate it. Okay, time to feast on some fear. In last week's episode, the Derry Police Department decided to finger Ronnie's dad Hank for the abduction and possible murder of the kids, since it was his theatre that they were last seen on, and because he's black. Lily is shipped off to the asylum for evaluation, and Will Hanlon makes two new friends, Rich and Ronnie. But as Pennywise devours more and more victims, his powers grow, and so does his evil influence over the town. And so things are getting darker and darker by the minute. We also finally get to see what the military is up to, as they unearth an old car from the late 30s, early 40s, with that very same family from the first episode piled up inside and completely decomposing. In this episode, we spend most of our time with the military storyline, diving deeper and deeper into the characters and their motivations. But we also hang out with the new Losers Club as they try and figure out a way to tell people what is going on without looking completely crazy. Out of the four of them, Rich really gets to shine. He's just a little hyper motormouth who seems to know a little bit about all sorts of things. As for adults, Dick Halloran is the star of this week, and we get a glimpse of how his shine ability works, including a really terrifying moment when his psychic abilities meet Pennywise's. Okay, spoilers are now inbound, so please skip to the timestamp on the screen to avoid any. Still here? Look into my dead lights, and let's get started. The episode begins with a flashback to 1908 when a circus has come to Derry. We follow a young boy in a newscap as he checks out all the games but finds himself oddly fascinated by a tent containing the freak show. All the classics are here: the dog boy, the super tall man, the fat bearded lady, and the conjoined twins. And then in the back, past all the crowds, are two glowing orange orbs, pulsating slightly. The boy heads back there and meets the skeleton man, a tall man so thin his entire skeleton is visible. When the skeleton man lights up a match and jumps out at the kid, he bolts and runs out the tent straight into his dad, who calls him a sissy. That's quite fitting for the time era. The two leave the circus and drive home when the car breaks down on a back road, and they are needing water to cool down the engine. But luckily enough, a group of native kids, roughly between 12 and 14, have a water stand nearby. So the dad sends a kid over to buy a jar. Pretty sure the girl is a young Rose, or at least her grandmother. Once the engine is cooled, the two hit the road again. We learn that the kid is named Francis, and after that day, he would often go back to that spot to visit and play with the other kids. One day though, while playing tag, he gets lost in the woods, then suddenly, the skeleton man appears from behind a tree. Fuck. It spooks the kid and he tries to run, but the skeleton man continues to stalk him, impossibly fast on those long limbs, eventually running on all fours like some demented Spider-Man. As it catches up to him, it begins to look more and more like one of those Wendigos from Until Dawn, and it almost gets him until the girl hits it on the head with a rock from her slingshot. She grabs Francis's hand and the two bolt, but the skeleton man shakes it off and the chase continues. Jump cut to the opening title credits. Over at Juniper Hill, it's a madhouse, but Lily seems to be okay, at least for now. She gets visited by a new lady therapist and this seems to calm her. We then jump over to the jail and Chief Bowers goes to see Hank, offering him a smoke and preparing to interrogate him. Now, we know Hank didn't do anything, but he also wasn't at home, and I don't understand why he's being so cagey about answering where he actually was. My guess is he was either having sex with a white woman, which would cause a lot of outrage at that time in this town, especially in 1964, or he was at the black spot, which they are all trying to keep secret, especially from any good old boys. Over at the school, Ronnie has become public rumour number one as all the kids whisper about her and her dad. They even scrawl a nasty message on her locker, Hatchet Hank's gonna fry. There's a funny exchange between Will and Rich about Ronnie's father possibly being guilty, as Rich says the police wouldn't arrest anyone if they weren't guilty. This is America after all. And Will snarks back, "We talking about the same country here?" Lily goes to apologise to Ronnie and promises to tell the police what she really saw, because she saw it again. And she's already back at Juniper Hill, so it doesn't matter anyone. But no one will believe them without proof, and so she brought a camera and they are gonna lure out the monster and get a picture of it. We bounce over to the airbase and get some exposition on the car they found, which, ding ding ding, it is a part of the Bradley Gang massacre. We called it. However, all they're finding so far is junk, remnants of the past events, and aren't getting any closer to the target. As the General puts it, there's only so much Halloran can do pointing to maps, so they decide to bring Dick into town. I also just realised General Francis Shaw is that boy from the flashback, so this explains why he even knows about it. And he reveals a kind of secret weapon, something Halloran can use to maybe tune his psychic energy. It is the slingshot the native girl used to fire a rock at the skeleton man. Halloran is teamed up with Major Hanlon and Captain Russo to do a flyover of Derry. Now we know the Major knows what's up, but Russo is still in the dark about the whole mission. Once they're up in the air and over the town, Halloran pulls out the slingshot and touches it, providing him a psychic link to the creature's energy, and like a compass, he orders the Major where to go. We once again flash back to that day in 1908 and see how the kids managed to escape. It looks like Pennywise can't leave the woods, so once they made it back to the road, they were safe. We then cut back to present day, over at the council meeting for the native reservation, and Rose is that little girl. She does not look 60 years old, so kudos to her. Her son or nephew informs her of the military finding the car, and she tells him to stay out of it. The council is meeting to stop the military from digging around Derry. However, Rose has a different plan, and given that she knows the Major, maybe she hopes that he's found a way to finally kill it. Jumping back to the helicopter, Dick is in full trance, and it's almost as if he's communicating with Pennywise. Suddenly, he snaps out of it and begins to wander around the helicopter's cargo bay towards the back end. Water has begun pooling in it, and then he's abruptly transported to the Derry sewers. As his vision quest continues, he finds the train box with Pennywise's logo on it, the same one the Losers Club stumbles upon in Chapter 1. And it opens up right in front of him. In the deep dark shadows of the container, a pair of bright yellow eyes flash open, and a disembodied voice growls out, "Who are you?" Dick is then bombarded by images from his memories of friends he's lost in the war, of terrifying monsters from films and other nightmares. And then that giant pile of toys and junk behind the container begins to crumble and drop litter all over him. When Dick looks up, he sees it, all the dead bodies floating there in eerie silence, including his dead grandmother, who turns and floats down towards him, and she tells him that Pennywise is coming and he better run. And so he turns and tries to open the sewer door, but in reality we cut over to the helicopter and he's actually opening the cargo bay doors. Oh shit. With some quick thinking, the Major jumps out of his seat and pulls Dick back inside, throwing him to the ground and holding him down until Dick snaps out of it finally. When they are back on the ground, Shaw questions Dick about what he saw. He gives the general the download, but also mentions that it wasn't supposed to see them. And now that it knows that they're after it, and who they are, it's gonna come after them. We then cut over to Will and Rich as they meet up with Ronnie and Lily. The girls need someone who knows how to develop film, and since he's a science geek, of course he knows how to do it. Another jump and we are now in Rose's shop, and Shaw visits his old friend. While they kind of pick up where they left off, 50 years ago, Shaw remarks that before he came back to town, he didn't remember anything at all. Not her, not about the circus, not even the monster in the woods. We get some more flashback exposition of the two and the summer they had together. And they, just like the Loser Club, they made a promise to each other to never forget. Another jump cut over to the secret tower hangout spot. And Ronnie, Lily, Rich and Will finally feel safe to talk about what they've seen. And Rich claims that the evil presence in Derry is called an Oricha, a spirit who can take on the form of dead loved ones to torment them and eat their happiness. Sounds grim. His uncle back in Cuba is a priest and used to conjure these mean spirits to get back at people who borrowed money and didn't pay him back. Fucking hell. This gives Ronnie and Lily an idea. If Rich knows how to perform this ritual, maybe they can summon it to a specific spot to get their picture. But Rich tells them it needs to be done in a cemetery. Oh boy, we know where this is going. Dick joins Leroy and his family for dinner, some food and some pleasantries later, and they talk military business. Dick changes the topic, however, asking Leroy where Will is, and Leroy looks at him curiously. I think because Dick saw what Pennywise is and all those dead kids, he knows that it eats children. But even with the things he is privy to and what he has seen, would he believe this? So Leroy just straight up asks him what the hell happened on the helicopter today, and Dick does his best to try and explain his ability and how the shine works. He also tells Leroy that he's unique, that while most men who face death think about things like their families, regrets and so forth, he himself is truly fearless. He was there that night when the masked men attacked him. In fact, he was one of them, and he saw into his mind and it was tactical, like he was incapable of being a friend. A good person to have on his side, especially with what they're doing and what they're going after. Dick then thanks him for saving his life on the helicopter and promises he'll look out for him and his family in return as well. The kids are in the cemetery and they're performing the ritual, and it's clear that they don't truly understand what they're doing. They sit in a circle around a fire but face out from it, in the 4 cardinal directions, to see if they spot anything. Some time passes and both Will and Rich are getting bored. Will tells Ronnie that he doesn't even believe that this monster exists. So of course, the girls get on their bikes and leave in a huff. The 2 boys then hop on their own bikes and chase after them. But it's too late. Pennywise is here. As they pedal to the exit, it just keeps getting further and further away. And suddenly the grave begins erupting. This forces the kids to split up, and Rich almost gets taken out by a flying zombie ghost. Lily also gets chased by one, but with quick thinking, whips out the camera and snaps a picture, only for her to drop it a few seconds later. Little dead Susie grabs onto Will and he keeps chanting, "This isn't real, this isn't real." And then he gets pulled into a pit of some kind. The kids circle back to each other, snatching up the camera with a horde of zombie ghosts flying after them. Will, in the meantime, is trapped by some kind of mausoleum when Rich rides right past him, tossing him the camera. Rich, Ronnie and Lily make it to safety outside of the cemetery, but Will, whose bike is bent, instead goes into the tomb and, well, monster inside. He, however, quickly snaps a pic before the screen cuts away as the monster lunges at him. Back at the gate, we see a faint light, and out of the darkness, Will comes stumbling out, and they pull him out of there. "I should have believed you," he huffs. They then head over to the school and break in to use the photo lab. One by one, they develop the photos. The first one is just of Will, but the next one is of one of the dead kids. And the next one, and the one after that, but the final photo, the one that Will took in the crypt, is of Pennywise in clown form. Cut to black. And that wraps it up. So we have mixed feelings about the episode. We did enjoy the expanded lore and the character development, but the cemetery chase stuff was a little bit goofy. I mean, each to their own right, as by Pennywise's nature, he chooses the form that scares his prey the most. And we all fear different things, so what might be scary to one person could sometimes be silly to another. And the same goes for horror movie audiences. But the episode was interesting, even with all the constant jumping around it does. But I do wonder, where are the parents? Like, it's a school night, why the hell are they still out in the middle of the night at the ages of 13 to 14 years old? I mean, I guess it could be the work of Pennywise, his influence making the parents not care or something, but we'll see. We're ranking the season at the end, but it's definitely worth checking it out, as it is pretty good so far. And feel free to discuss your theories with us in the comments. I want to thank you all for checking out the video. What did you think of the episode? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest releases. If you're on mobile, please make sure to hit the hype button too. Just swipe right on the comments. And I have been your host Sarah, and thank you for being here with me today. I hope you have the most beautiful day, and take care. Bye. You're shedding so bad right now.